welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian. I'm streaming to you live from rainy and cloudy Budapest here in Central Europe. I hope everybody is having a healthy and good weekend so far. Staying strong, staying active. In this class, we are looking at speaking part 3 of the speaking interview. Specifically, we're focusing on the topic of games and sports following from our previous session just 30 minutes ago. And of course, this lesson is brought to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS. Check us out at aehelp.com to get access to over 100 hours of video lessons, a fully interactive course, and original practice exams. For the general IELTS, check us out at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. Now, this is a speaking class, everyone, so make sure to speak and repeat. Okay, so copy my intonation, my words, my grammar, my rate of speech. Hi, Hina. Hi, Pooja. Nice to see our members. Hi, Rucky. Hi, Paya. Hello, Veer Paul. Nice to see many people in the class. Just a really important note, again, a reminder to everyone that we have free speaking practice on our websites, and I'll show you those real quick. So this is the academic website here. You can click that big red button to join the premium package. You can also try the website for absolutely free when you click the green button, which is try the demo, okay? And then in either of those, and of course in the full, but also in the free version, you can go to your My Student account after you log in with your email and your password. And then you have access to the computer-based practice exams. You have a full interactive course. You have exams, workbooks, study plans. You have lots and lots of videos. These all open up into their own sections with lots of different elements, of course. And then off to the right, you have the possibility to practice your writing and get professional correction and feedback for task 1, task 2. And then just underneath that, you have this button called Student Partner Speaking, and you can use that even in the free version, okay? So when you click on that Student Partner Speaking, it will ask you to accept the agreement that you will be polite with other students, and then you accept that, and it will open up a new page for you. And on that new page, you will always find a couple, sometimes 10 students looking for speaking partners. Right now we have Kabir and Khan in here looking for people to speak with. You can do audio chat, you can do video chat, you can text each other, and you can even find speaking section questions. So it's very much like Skype or WhatsApp, but it's all within the website. And of course, it's only people that are looking for IELTS, okay? So make sure to use those functions, and then you have questions as well. Okay, I'm gonna close this. Otherwise, I'm sure people will ping me. Keep the page open when you're logged in. General IELTS, it's the same. With the green background, you have the speaking option there too. So keep the page open so that other people can ping you and ask you to practice speaking with them. Okay? Shaikh says, yeah, I spoke with Kabir yesterday. Nice, Shaikh. That's great. I'm super thrilled that lots of students are using the speaking functions on the website. That's fantastic. It really is great. All right, and we're going to add that to the apps as well. So you're going to be able to access the speaking partners through your apps also, okay? There's an app called Academic IELTS Help. It links to the aehelp.com account. For General IELTS Help, the app is General IELTS Help, and it links to the gieltshelp.com account. And we're going to release, I think in the next month, hopefully, the student partner speaking in the app as well. So you're going to be able to access that from the app. I'm feeling great. Thank you, Kush Kaur, for asking. All right, students, if you have questions, you can always send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com, and I will gladly help you, okay, and give you some advice. So don't be shy. Send me an email if you have questions. Classes, students, are 13:30 and 15 o'clock Central European Time. This class right now is the 15 o'clock class on the 13th. These live IELTS classes, we host them from Wednesday to Saturday at this time. So today, after this class, I will put up the schedule for next week classes, okay? All right, looking good. Tamonish says, got my results of IELTS today. I've passed the exam. Kush Kaur, sir. Awesome, Tamonish. Congratulations. I bid you all the best in your next steps. Band 8. Wow, impressive, Tamonish. Good job. Big thumbs up, Tamonish. I know you were in a lot of these classes, so fantastic. I'm super happy that you passed and you did well. All right. So, students, let's get into part 3 for speaking. Let's get into some practice. Now, part 3 follows part 2, of course. And we just did part 2. Some of our members or viewers that were in the last class, can you remind everyone what our topic and our answer was for part 2 of the speaking? So what were we talking about? What did we discuss? What did we chat about? I'm going to brighten us up a little bit here. Let's do that. Yes, Samuel Sadir says, our favorite sport is tennis. Mohammed Azat was watching. Very good. Tennis, yeah. About playing tennis. So, part 2, we talked about playing tennis. The sport I enjoy to play the most is tennis. Okay, good. I'm glad that a lot of people were in this class. Now, keep in mind, students, that this is why you have to practice and do a really good job in part 2, because part 3 is connected to part 2. So you want to make connections there, and you want to reflect. So do a really good job in part 2, as this will greatly help you to give better answers faster for part 3. Make sure to connect the answers, or I should say your answers, among part 2 and part 3. Okay? The examiner hints you for that. The examiner says, okay, that's the end of part 2. I'm going to take back the card with the questions, and now we will continue with part 3. For part 3, I will ask you some more questions related to the topic of part 2. So I will ask you some more questions related to the topic of part 2. That's kind of a hint. It's telling you, hey, we're talking about the same ideas. If you can, make a couple connections. So here we go. Let's get into it, and we'll talk more strategy as we go along and build a bit of fluency. Let's tackle this first question. What is the difference between a game and a sport? And we kind of thought about that, right, when we were thinking critically about the card. So here we go. What is the difference between a game and a sport? There is no right answer. You just have to give an answer that has good logic, is believable, and uses good English, right? So let's see what you're coming up with. All right, Abhishek says, well, I'd say a game and a sport are totally different. Recreation involves just more than one character, and a sport pertains to the most effective an individual's talents and performance, a bodily activity. Sport is carried out under an agreed set of rules. Sport is associated with recreational purpose, either for self-enjoyment or opposition, or for both. It's a bit confusing, Abhishek. Simplify your ideas and be careful. You said sports carried out under agreed set of rules. I'd say games are too. Games have an agreed set of rules. So, Abhishek, it's a lot of information, but I think it's a little bit difficult to understand what you're actually saying. So, simplify it. Okay. Peya Basak says, I do think there is a little distinguishment between sports and games. Sports refers to outdoor and indoor activities, whereas games can be indoor activities only. That's why I mentioned tennis game as well. I'm not sure, Peya. Are you sure we can't play any kinds of games outdoors? I'd say there are certain kinds of games that we can play outdoors, like have a snowball fight. I think that's more of a game than a sport, for example. Okay. Seni Surani says there is a reward and punishment during participating in one's games. Meanwhile, there's none of that during some sports. I don't know, Seni. Are you sure there's no reward and punishment when we play sports? Okay. Boomy says the main difference among a game and a sport is having risk in a particular activity, like racing, which has more chance of physical injury compared to playing mentally. It's mentally straining games like cricket. Okay, Boomy. So definitely a bit of confusion. If it's not clear, state that. Okay. So what is the difference between a game and a sport? Well, that's a tricky question, as this is often very ambiguous, and different people have different opinions. Okay. Now, students, this kind of leading expression, I know sometimes people are like, oh, really? Everybody's saying those, but you shouldn't say these all the time. You should say these kinds of leading expressions when they're accurate. The question of what is the difference between a game and a sport is a tricky question. So this is when you can say that's a tricky question. Why? Because it's often ambiguous. Ambiguous means unclear. And different people have different opinions. I believe that the main difference, so this is where you want to keep it simple, okay? I believe that the main difference is that a sport requires a lot of physical effort using the muscles of the body, as where games demand more mental concentration and less physical effort. Exertion. Okay. Check the spelling on that. Exhaustion, let's say. But with some activities, like tennis, it's difficult to distinguish, as it requires both. And you could say that about cricket as well, and of course some other sports as well, right? So, and that's my connection to the previous, okay? But here, I want to keep it simple. Is it true that the difference between a sport and a game is that a sport requires a lot more physical energy than mental energy? Maybe, maybe not, but it makes sense and it's believable. So that's all you have to say, okay? Repeat after me. What is the difference between a game and a sport? Well, that's a tricky question, as this is often very ambiguous and different people have different opinions. I believe that the main difference is that a sport requires a lot of physical effort using the muscles of the body, as where games demand more mental concentration and less physical exhaustion. But with some activities like tennis, it's difficult to distinguish as it requires both. Okay. Can you elaborate? That would be the follow-up question. Students, when I'm reading these answers, make sure to repeat. Okay, make sure to repeat. All right, so can you elaborate? When you get this question, can you elaborate? Never answer, no, I've said my opinion and that's it. So don't do that. Always elaborate, okay? When it's asking you to elaborate, think of further explanation and examples, okay? So, Shaikh Fazil says, well, I can elaborate. If we see in the indoor games, it's an open space area where there's a lot of physical activity with fresh nature. In indoor games, it's a closed room with packed full of people. Okay, give me some examples, Shaikh, and I think your answer will be a lot clearer. Okay, so Swati says, yeah, sure. Like for chess, we commonly know it's a game, but when there's a chess competition for long hours and the competitors are completely drained both mentally and physically, we could call it a sport. Saswati, very nice. I love Saswati, how I think you were watching the last class, if I'm not mistaken, because I talked about that, and you did a really good job of referring back to that, okay? All right, very nice. I like it, Saswati. Think about how you could have done the same for tennis, right? So Alex Joseph says, well, a game involves more than one individual, and a sport pertains only to an individual's skill and performance. Furthermore, sports are carried out under an agreed set of rules, so they're entirely different. Games can be carried out under an agreed set of rules. Chess, Alex, is carried out under an agreed set of rules. So Maksud says, Adrian, should we smile while we speak? That's a good question, Maksud. And students, you can ask me questions. If I see a question that's good and it fits in with the lesson, I'll definitely answer. Maksud, smiling while you are in the speaking interview is a good idea. For one big reason, it will help you to relax. And when you're relaxed, you will speak better, okay? So you will, of course, appear a little bit more on the friendly side as well, which is good. Smiling usually has a good effect. So this was just a side question by a student, is should we smile during the interview? That was a very good question. The answer, yes. The biggest reason is, yes, it will help you relax. And generally, when people relax, they communicate better. Okay, so smiling is not a bad idea at all. Remember, maybe I should just smile, okay? All right. Rifa, thanks for your compliment. All right. So can you elaborate? Yeah, you can elaborate, okay? So always elaborate. Yes, of course. When I'm playing tennis with my siblings, just for fun, I don't always give 100%, and we don't necessarily keep score. So in this case, it's more of a game. However, when I'm playing in a tournament and I give 110% physical effort, it is definitely a competitive sport. All right? So keep going with your thoughts, okay? Expand on them. So think about, hey, okay, when is tennis just a game? When is tennis really a sport? Okay, and then you'll see that difference. And I think this is where a lot of you will have a lot of clarity. Maksud's asking, why 110%? We use that expression, Maksud, 110%, to tell the listener that it's more than everything I have. It's everything I have plus a little extra. Okay? So that's an expression. Very good question. 110% would be an idiomatic expression, Maksud. Very good question there. Okay? The comma before and bisser is used when we're joining sentence with sentence, when you have subject, verb, object, and you're joining two full sentences, there will always be a comma before the and, okay? All right, so here we go. Repeat after me. Can you elaborate? Yes, of course. When I'm playing tennis with my friends or siblings, just for fun, I don't always give 100%, and we don't necessarily keep scores. So in this case, it's more of a game. However, when I'm playing in a tournament and I give 110% physical effort, it's definitely a competitive sport. Okay? All right. Good job, students. Keep going. I'll catch different responses at different times. Make sure to note the time when I'm giving the feedback so you can check later in the video. Here we go with the next question. How have playing games changed over the past couple of decades? So how have playing games changed over the past couple of decades? Kevin Bowie says, with the advent of tech, gaming has been converted into internet-based forms instead of physical activities. Also, these forms are more addictive as players immerse in them. Good answer, Kevin. Can you give me an example? Throw an example in there. I know you're running out of space there, but an example would definitely be good. Oh, maybe there it is. There it is. I see it, Kevin. In fact, my little brother is so ensnared by PUBG Mobile that he sometimes deliberately plays it all night long. Ooh, that's not good, Kevin. You should definitely suggest your brother to not do that. This can be very damaging, but it's a good example. Almas HSA says, I should say today some kinds of games are considered to be esports played on the internet in some countries. And about the attitudes towards games, they're no longer harsh compared with the past over the years. Do you mean, Almas, that people are have better sportsmanship these days than in the past? Because I would agree that people are more empathetic when they're playing games. They're not as aggressive and as intense, maybe, generally speaking. Okay. Rangana says, for instance, to verify whether a particular player is really out or not in a cricket game. So I think you're talking about technology, Rangana, which is good, but you took out your first bit of response there. Just keep it in there next time. Piyush Kakadia says, yes, games have definitely changed and competition has increased dramatically. There have been lots of innovations that have happened in the last few decades. Piyush, very nice. I love how you're reflecting the present perfect 3 times. Yes, your examiner will catch that. So this question is present perfect, have changed. So you need to show present perfect. Piyush is doing a fantastic job. Good job, Piyush. Says definitely have changed. They have increased. There have been lots of innovations. Nice. Okay, Piyush, give me some examples, a little bit of explanation, and I'll give you a band 9 for that. Okay. Roshni Kunte says, yes, games have changed tremendously as compared to 20 years ago. These days, individuals prefer to play indoor matches since they can play them anytime in any weather. However, in my father's generation, people tended to play games more outdoors. Yeah, Roshni, I would agree. I would say that indoor games, relatively speaking, have become more popular than outdoor games. People definitely spend more time indoors than in the past. And nice job, Roshni, on the paraphrasing of 20 years for a couple of decades. Couple of decades, a decade is 10 years. Couple is usually 2. So couple of decades, 20 years. Really nice paraphrasing. That's what you want to do, okay? So that's a tip for getting those band 9s. All right? Make a quick note of that. Tip. To get higher band scores, reflect the grammar of the question. If the question is present perfect, use present perfect twice in your answer. Okay? And another tip is paraphrase elements of the question to increase your lexical resource, basically your vocabulary, scores. Okay, so the example here was a couple of decades equals 20 years. Okay, that was by Roshni. Very good. All right, so that's exactly what you want to do. All right, so how have playing games changed? So it's a how question. Games, I think that indulging in games have definitely become different over the past 20 years, both culturally and technologically. What I mean is that people are less aggressive, generally speaking, than in the past when playing games. As well, due to the internet and gadgets, people play games more online and indoors than outdoors, as during my parents' time. Even myself, as I said, I play tennis indoors. Okay, so that is my band 9 answer. Repeat after me. Students, here we go. How have playing games changed over the past couple of decades? I think that indulging in games have definitely become different over the past 20 years, both culturally and technologically. What I mean is that people are less aggressive. This is where at home I would say, oh, wait a second, let's put a second present perfect here. Have become less aggressive, generally speaking, than in the past when playing games as well. Due to the internet and gadgets, people play games more online and indoors than outdoors, as during my parents' time. Even myself, as I said, I play tennis indoors. Okay, so like I mentioned, students, when you hear that present perfect, it's a really good idea to not just once, but twice show the present perfect in your answer. That will help bump up your score. Okay. So keep that in mind. All right. Now the follow-up question. There are always follow-up questions to these questions in part 3, or for most of them anyway. Is this for the better or worse? So give me a nice full sentence answer response for this one. Is this for the better or for the worse? So these changes, obviously, that you had just mentioned for the previous. Okay? All right. Charlie says, I think it depends on the perspective. Like in 2020 cricket, it brings much more entertainment and business than ever before, which is possible. But due to this format, players have a lack of skills, which used to exist in the past. Okay, Charlie, I like it. I really like how you rolled into that example. Okay, that's great. Shaikh says, I think it's worse because both indoor and outdoor games are played on smartphones. This will change people mentally and physically. There will be lots of disadvantages, such as muscular atrophy, right? Where muscles get really small and weak. Okay? Possibly. There is no right or wrong answer, students. It's just up to you and giving a clear explanation and example. Okay? All right. Piyush says, absolutely, the change has always made it all better. This change in sports actually increased the level of difficulty and the challenge, and athletes get opportunities to present their hidden talents. Piyush, I corrected a few words there. Piyush, stay away from the word everything. Everything doesn't have a clear meaning in communication, so avoid that for quality communication. In business, on the IELTS, in presentations, try not to use the word everything. Okay? Don't use the word things. Don't use the word everything. Daniel 28:2 says games have definitely changed over the past decades. I think so because now there are more games online and they are virtual reality based. Children are wearing 3D headsets and they're completely absorbed in it. Okay, compared to the past, Daniel, as where in the past children went outside to kick around the soccer ball on a real field, or as the British say, on the football pitch. Abhishek says, well, it's a debatable question as every coin has two sides. Nowadays, teenagers give priority to indoor games over outdoor games. As a result, they are potentially weaker, but mentally they might be more adept. Right, Abhishek? That was good. Okay, so in this case, I believe it is both, as every coin has two sides, if you really want to use that idiom. Okay, Abhishek, that was good there. All right. On the one hand, many people these days lack the physical fitness of past generations because they are not spending enough time outdoors moving around. On the other hand, they are increasing their mental capacity more than ever before, since they have been addicted to strategy games over the past decade. Now, when you have a follow-up question to a question that's asking you for the present perfect grammar, it's a really good idea to try to fit at least one present perfect into the next question as well, the follow-up question. So is this for the better or worse? In this case, I believe it is both, as every coin has two sides. On the one hand, many people these days lack the physical fitness of past generations because they're not spending enough time outdoors moving around. On the other hand, they are increasing their mental capacity more than ever before since they have been addicted to strategy games over the past decade. All right, next question, everyone. Why do people like to play certain games that are dangerous? All right, so switching gears a little bit. What would be a dangerous game? All right. So why do people like to play certain games that are dangerous? Give me a nice full sentence answer for this one. Marios says individuals like to participate in hazardous activities as they want to stand out from others and gain their favor. Many people jump off high cliffs to impress their friends. All right, very good, Marios. I corrected a couple of words in there. Individuals like to participate in hazardous activities. Hazardous games is okay. Hazardous activities. Can you give an example? Yeah, sure. Jumping off cliffs. Very good, Marios. I like it. Pooja says, well, there are definitely some games that are life-threatening. Life-threatening is what you're looking for, Pooja. Life-threatening. Okay, life-threatening, like skydiving and paragliding, which have become trendy these days. People do it in order to gain popularity or maybe just to live on the edge and for that adrenaline rush. It's called an adrenaline rush, Pooja. Nice answer, though. Nice examples. Charlie Sen says, some people are adrenaline junkies. They are adventurers. As a result, they have fun in dangerous activities like MotoGP, bike racing sports, which are dangerous. Yeah, very good. Nice answer, Charlie. Quick thinking, coming up with some original thoughts and answers. It's fantastic. All right. Rangana says, people resort to playing various kinds of risky sports and games, even at the expense of their lives, for a couple of reasons. For one, life-threatening sports like wrestling are a multi-million-dollar industry and they get paid a lot of money. For another, it brings them great fame, which no money can buy. Okay, Rangana, I made a couple of corrections there. Stay away from the word thing. Students, even saying for one thing, stay away from it. Just say for one. You don't actually need the word thing in that expression, Rangana. You can just say for one, life-threatening sports like wrestling. Okay, you don't need to say for one thing. Okay, thing is a funny word. It actually doesn't have any value to communication or in communication. Okay, so stay away from it. Shaheen says indoor games are not very useful to become strong, but because of the small space, they're popular. When you try to play an indoor game, it's only to, I think that's off topic, Shaheen. You got to really focus on the question, okay? It's confusing, right? It's confusing. Okay, Kevin Bowie says, for the most part, I suppose those extreme games can offer players with thrills that otherwise might be impossible, like skydiving from 8,000 meters. As well, some individuals just are adventurous by nature, myself included. Very good. So the reason certain individuals like to seek adventure and participate in life-threatening activities like skydiving and bungee jumping is for both the adrenaline rush as well as the lionization by others. All right. Stop there. Okay, so here we go. Students, repeat after me. Why do people like to play certain games that are dangerous? The reason certain individuals like to seek adventure and participate in life-threatening activities like skydiving and bungee jumping is both for the adrenaline rush as well as the lionization by others. Lionization means that people adore them, respect them, and think greatly of them. Think of lion, right? Roar, lion. Lions are amazing. Oh, lionization. Okay, it's a nice piece of vocabulary. So seek adventure. Note that collocation. Again, speak and repeat, students. Seek adventure. Life-threatening activity. Okay, adrenaline rush. Lionization. There's some great vocabulary for you to add to your repertoire right there. Okay, next question. What is important to consider when playing a dangerous game? Give me a nice full sentence for this one. So what is important to consider when playing a dangerous game? So Piyush says, I think the most important aspect is to prioritize and to ensure safety first. Participants should consider positive and negative circumstances that they are going to face while doing these adventurous games. In this way, they minimize the risk of physical injury. Very good, Piyush. Again, stay away from the word things. I think for the most important aspect or thought is to prioritize safety first. Okay, Piyush? Students, there are always words better than the word thing. Komal Preet says, using concentration like I should have, could have, can help in getting higher bands in speaking IELTS exam. Komal Preet, should have, could have, it depends on the question. Okay, some questions you might use that, but Komal Preet, it's better to use affirmative language than modal language. Modal communication is usually weak and ambiguous. Affirmative language is clear and confident. So affirmative language is better than using maybe, could have, should have. Okay? All right. Good question. Little side note there. Charlie Sen says, I think proper clarity and analysis is required in order to try a life-threatening game, and of course, practice to reduce the possibility of accident. Like skydiving needs clarity and practice. Very good, Charlie. Nice connection. Okay. So what is important to consider when playing a dangerous game while participating in risky activities like skydiving? It is very important to be clear-headed or clear-minded. It's okay to say as well. It is very important to be clear-minded and prepared. I mean that people should be healthy both mentally and physically when doing such games, and they ought to check their equipment, practice, and prepare ahead of time. This way, they can minimize the risk of injury. All right. So here we go, students. Repeat after me. What is important to consider when playing a dangerous game? While participating in risky activities like skydiving, it's very important to be clear-minded and prepared. I mean that people should be healthy both mentally and physically when doing such games, and they ought to check their equipment, practice, and prepare ahead of time. This way, they can minimize the risk of injury. And provided that you're doing a really good job and you are answering the questions nicely and fluently, the examiner is going to ask you some more questions. The examiner will say, let's talk about sports. And then a few more questions on sports. Okay. Now, I'm going to leave those questions. You can practice these on your own, record them on your phone, send them to me as an MP3. Instead, here, in the last couple minutes of class, I want to give you a chance to ask me questions about the speaking section. We usually don't have time for this, and today I wanted to leave a couple minutes for this because I see that many students have inquiries. So speaking section questions. Let me know what questions you have. Of course, we have people working for a company that are past IELTS examiners. We have a connection with British Council as well as IELTS registration partners, so we can find out the answers to just about any question that students have. So ask me some questions, okay? And I'll pick out some that I think will be helpful. So Amanjot says, how do I start the answer of any question? There is no one way, Amanjot. To start the answer to any question, use the grammar and elements of the question. Okay, so that's the answer to that one. All right, so the question here was, how can I start my answer? Listen to the question and then start using the grammar. So what is the importance of sports to society? For a community, athletics are necessary for people to release stress and promote health. Okay, so how did I start my answer? By using the question. What is the importance of sports to society? Athletics are necessary for a community of people to release stress and improve their health. Okay, so that would be the start to any question using the answer. All right, okay. Lots of questions coming up. I can see that, so that's okay. Maksud, we're sticking to speaking right now, so the focus is speaking, not listening. Roshni is asking, how do I avoid unnecessary words and use different structures? Okay, that's a good question, Roshni. So how do I avoid different words? Okay, so avoid repetition and show greater lexical resource by thinking of answer plus explanation plus example. Okay. Usually what happens, Roshni, when students start to repeat themselves is they get stuck on the answer or they get stuck on the explanation and they keep repeating themselves with that. But as long as you remember that, okay, I have an answer, I have an explanation, and I have an example, then you're not going to repeat yourself. You're always going to have some variety. So here again, what is the importance of sports to society? To a community of people, athletics are necessary to improve health and to relieve stress because most people go to work and school, so they sit for many hours, and sports helps them to move around. As I mentioned in the second part, I play tennis for 2 to 3 hours, at least 3 to 4 times a week after I'm done at my office. So there you can see my answer, explanation, example, and I'm providing variety, okay, making that connection, all right? The other important point here, that's kind of a two-part question, Roshni. So you asked me about repetition and about using different words. That's actually two questions. Is when you're practicing, especially at home, so avoid using ambiguous nouns like thing, stuff, everything. Even avoid pronouns like he, she. Instead, use specific nouns and what's called subjective nouns like athletes, competitors, Olympians. Okay, bet you that's going to capitalize for me. Okay, so yeah, so use your subjective nouns. That will help build your vocabulary and your lexical resource. Amit is asking, are pauses allowed when you're speaking? Amit Shah is asking that. Yeah, so is it okay to pause while speaking? And I'll add another one in here, Amit, or to use natural fillers like and The answer is yes, it is. Okay, and I know that's different than what some of your teachers or courses have taught you. So some courses and some teachers like, you should not use fillers like or because your score will go down. You shouldn't stop talking. Just keep going and expressing yourself and never talk. Always find a word to add in there so that you're really fluent and you're going to get the maximum score possible. And keep talking until that examiner stops you, because otherwise they're going to think that you have no English skills and you just started to study yesterday and will never be able to take the test again. So no, students, that's crazy, okay? Humans don't talk like that. We pause and we use natural fillers in our own language. Virtually everybody does this for a very good reason. We think during those pauses and natural fillers. Now, here's the important point. So yes, it is. However, it is only okay to pause and use what's called natural fillers. I think a lot of students don't even understand that these and they're called natural fillers. There's a whole science behind this, and politicians use them, lawyers use them, professionals use them. So it's only okay to pause and use natural fillers when you are thinking about content and not language. Like words. Okay? So if you're pausing because you're trying to think of a word and you can't think of the word, or it's clear that you're having difficulty thinking in English or speaking in English, yeah, you're going to lose marks. Of course, that's fluency. But if you're pausing and using and to think about content, the information, then it's totally fine. Everybody does it. You're not going to lose marks for that. In fact, you're going to lose more marks if you just talk and don't make any sense at all. All right? Then you'll lose marks. All right? Okay, students, I'm going to stop there for today. If you have more questions, those were a few good questions. I can't answer all the questions. Of course, we'd be here for a very long time, but those were some good ones. You can always send your questions to me at adrian@aehelp.com. You can also find answers to questions on our websites in the blogs and forums. Just visit us there. aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com for general, and use this code R4TYJ. You'll get a 20% discount from the premium package when you go to the website. So if you click on these red buttons, the join now, there'll be an apply coupon code. You can use that for a 20% discount, okay? All right, that's it for me for today and for this week. I will host more live IELTS next week from Wednesday to Saturday, and I'm going to put the schedule for next week's classes up in the next hour on the channel. So you're very welcome, Bisser, Rashina, Patrick. Nice to have you on board with our members, and good to see so many of our regular students. Saki, Bose, Omar. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Stay safe, stay strong, believe in yourselves. Much love to all of you. I'm Adrian, signing out from Budapest. Bye for now.